There is a way of being that speaks more eloquently than any speech. A quiet gravity that lingers in the mind long after the room is emptied. Many women sense this presence but chase it in the wrong direction, believing that attraction is won through explanations, confessions, and flawless timing. They try to solve intimacy like a problem set, supplying more words when anxiety rises, more reasons when reassurance doesn't come, more effort when affection feels uncertain. Yet what moves a man, what pulls his thoughts back to you in the hours you are not there, is rarely the torrent of language. It is the stillness beneath your language, the calm, unbothered center that communicates value without asking for proof. The ancients intuited this. The modern world forgets it. Carl Jung, with his attention to the currents beneath our conscious performance, simply gave it a name. The unconscious speaks through posture and pause, through breath and gaze, through what isn't said because it never needs to be. When you stand inside yourself with ease, when you carry a soft self-trust that isn't up for debate, the air around you changes temperature. Men notice it even when they cannot describe it. It isn't aloofness. It isn't a performance of scarcity. It is a steadiness that says you are not at the mercy of someone else's whims to feel whole. In a culture that rewards constant commentary, this steadiness reads like a secret. We mistake endless communication for connection and confuse verbal intimacy with emotional truth. But words offered from fear will always betray the fear. The voice tightens, the smile strains, the presence flickers. A woman can tell herself she is just being honest, yet the energy carried in her urgency says something entirely different, that she needs to be chosen right now to believe she is worthy at all. Nothing repels curiosity faster. This is the common mistake. In the rush to be understood, we over-explain our intentions, justify our reactions, narrate our availability, and accidentally communicate that our center lives outside our skin. The mind may craft persuasive reasons, but the body reveals a plea. We fill every quiet space with talk because silence feels like an accusation, and the moment we do, we erase the very mystery that invites a man to cross the room toward us. Mystery is not a trick. It is unhurried self-possession. It is the refusal to perform your life like an application. It is the confidence that discovery takes time and that someone who is worthy of you is not frightened by time. None of this asks you to be cold. Indifference is not the point. The point is to let your warmth come from a deep hearth rather than a nervous fire. Speak less, not to punish, but to allow your presence to do its work. Share your feelings from the ground of your dignity, not as a bid for reassurance. Choose your moments the way a composer chooses rests, not to empty the score, but to make the melody inevitable. When you rest inside that rhythm, your words carry weight because they are not scrambling to hold the room together. They are simply the visible tip of an invisible stability. Jung called individuation the path by which we become ourselves, less a brand for public consumption than a person who can sit in a room with their own soul and not flinch. A woman who has walked some distance on that path does not announce her value, she inhabits it. Her gaze is clear without being hard. Her smile is generous without being performative. She listens because she is curious, not because she is auditioning. She can enjoy the uncomplicated silence between two sentences, the space where attraction grows legs, because she is not using the conversation to rescue her self-respect. That is what men register first, not a tactic, not a pose, but a felt sense that you are not a problem to be solved or a void to be filled. You are already a life, and he is invited to meet you at that altitude. If you have ever left a conversation exhausted by how much effort you poured into being understood, if you have ever watched your sincerity meet a blank wall and blamed yourself for not arguing better, consider this possibility. The problem was not your honesty, but your hurry. Desire does not flourish under pressure. It leans toward the light of intrigue and the gravity of respect. When you treat your presence as something that must be defended, you teach the room to treat it as something debatable. When you treat it as a given, you teach the room to take its measure. This is the premise and the promise of the silent attitude. It is not silence as withdrawal or punishment, but silence as composure. It is not withholding. It is holding your ground, your warmth, your pace. It is the subtle discipline of answering from calm instead of fear, of letting your pauses remind you that your value is not contingent on the next reaction. Paradoxically, this is what makes you unforgettable, not the volume of your words, but the resonance of your being, not the spectacle, but the steadiness that lingers after the spectacle ends. In that steadiness, curiosity awakens, respect deepens, and the connection that begins is not a negotiation, but a meeting. The effect of this silent composure is subtle at first, almost invisible, but it accumulates like a slow tide. A man feels it before he can name it. Something in the way you do not rush to fill the air with explanations unsettles the familiar patterns he expects. He leans closer, pays more attention, begins to wonder. When you resist the urge to overshare or justify yourself, you allow him the rare chance to discover you on his own terms. Discovery is the soil in which genuine attraction grows. A mystery does not have to be dramatic, it only has to be incomplete. And when you embody this balance of presence and restraint, you remain incomplete in the best possible way, inviting, intriguing, alive with a depth that cannot be mapped in a single encounter. What makes this energy powerful is that it is not performed. A woman trying to imitate it too consciously soon slips into contradiction. Pretending to be indifferent, for example, carries the scent of effort, and effort always betrays itself. True silent strength rises from self-respect, not strategy. It comes from knowing that your worth is not a verdict another person can deliver or deny. That knowledge shifts everything. Your tone steadies, your smile loses its edge of demand, your body language opens without clinging. These cues are small, but they bypass the rational mind and travel straight into the unconscious, where human beings make their deepest judgments about safety, value, and desire. This is why Jung emphasized the power of nonverbal expression. The unconscious, he observed, leaks through gestures and glances, through how we occupy silence. A woman might insist with words that she is confident, yet if her posture curls inward, if her laughter strains for approval, if her every silence trembles with anxiety, her unconscious message drowns her claims. Conversely, when she sits with ease, when her pauses are unhurried, when her gaze is soft yet steady, the unconscious speaks more convincingly than any declaration could. Men, often less attuned to verbal nuance than to embodied presence, respond instinctively. They do not always know why they feel drawn, only that they do. Consider how differently a conversation unfolds when you listen fully instead of preparing your next line. True listening is a rare gift, and it requires confidence. It means you trust that your presence is enough, that you do not need to audition for connection. When you listen this way, you are not merely waiting, you are absorbing, reflecting, signaling with every nod and glance that what he says matters. The paradox is that the less you demand attention, the more compelling you become. He begins to seek your reaction not because you begged for it, but because your calm attentiveness makes his words feel heavier, more valuable. Silence in this sense is not emptiness, it is a mirror in which he sees himself more clearly. Even your smallest gestures shift in meaning when they rise from this calm center. A light touch on his hand, given without calculation, can speak volumes because it is not part of a script. A smile that emerges from inner ease, not from the need to charm, lodges in memory because it feels unforced. The power lies not in the gesture itself, but in the absence of tension behind it. The same is true of your voice. A gentle, measured tone, free of nervous speed, signals that you are anchored. Shrillness and haste, however, betray restlessness, and restlessness translates unconsciously as need. To speak slowly is to signal abundance of patience, of self-possession, of time. Posture, too, tells a story. A woman who makes herself small, who folds inward or hunches to erase her presence, communicates doubt without saying a word. A woman who stands upright, who allows her body to claim its rightful space without aggression, communicates something entirely different. I belong here. I'm not apologizing for existing. Men may not articulate why, but they feel it. They recognize a current of respect that draws them in. Because respect is magnetic. Respect tells him that what he hopes to gain from you cannot be demanded, it must be earned. In practice, cultivating this silent attitude begins with self-awareness. Notice how quickly you rush to fill silence in a conversation. Notice when your smile strains, when your tone rises an octave in search of approval, when your words tumble out to defend a choice that needs no defense. These are signals not of failure, but of opportunity. Each is a chance to pause, to breathe, to remember that your presence is already enough. Each is a chance to reclaim the calm that makes your silence luminous rather than heavy. The more you practice, the less you will fear the quiet between words. In fact, you may come to treasure it, for it is there. In those pauses, that curiosity awakens and connection deepens. This shift does not merely alter how he sees you, it alters how you see yourself. When you stop outsourcing your worth to his reactions, you step into a steadier rhythm. You no longer live in the push and pull of his attention. You live in your own center. That is what fascinates him most, though he may not be able to explain why. He will think of you not because you demanded it, but because your calm mystery left space for him to wonder. And wonder, more than any speech, is what keeps a man awake at night, replaying your smile, your glance, your silence, until he cannot help but come closer. What unfolds in him when you embody this quiet gravity is not simply attraction in the shallow sense. It is a deeper stirring, a curiosity that refuses to be satisfied by surface answers. Men are accustomed to women who rush to prove themselves, to lay everything bare in the first exchanges. That familiarity dulls desire. But when he meets a woman who does not perform for approval, who offers glimpses instead of the full script, his psychology responds with heightened attention. The silence you inhabit becomes a canvas onto which his imagination begins to paint. This projection is powerful. It is not about deception, it is about leaving enough space for his mind to move, for his own longing to meet you halfway. Male psychology values what is not easily conquered, what is scarce, unpredictable, and authentic holds weight. In a world crowded with words, the woman who can let silence do some of the talking appears rare. He finds himself wondering about you in the spaces between encounters. What does she think when she looks at me that way? What lies beneath that calmness? Why does her presence linger even after she is gone? These questions tether his attention without your lifting a finger. Because the mystery is not contrived, it radiates from the authenticity of a woman at peace with herself. This is not to say men are enchanted only by difficulty. Rather, it is the balance that captivates them: warmth without need, openness without desperation, intimacy without loss of self. The silent attitude creates that balance naturally. It keeps him leaning forward, alert, willing to invest his energy to bridge the gap. He feels he must earn your trust, not because you are withholding, but because you are whole. That difference is crucial. When a woman withholds affection as a tactic, the game soon collapses. But when a woman simply lives from her center, giving without clinging, her energy signals that love is a gift, not a plea, and that truth is irresistible. Respect grows in this soil. A man cannot respect what constantly begs, but he deeply respects what does not collapse in the absence of his attention. This is why the silent attitude not only attracts but sustains attraction. It communicates that your life is full, that your self-worth is intact, that you are not asking him to rescue you from emptiness. In turn, he feels called to rise, to match the level of dignity you embody. The dynamic shifts instead of you auditioning for his affection. He works to prove himself worthy of yours. At the unconscious level, silence carries another power. It forces him to confront his own emotions. When you do not rush to explain every gesture or soothe every doubt, he cannot simply lean on your words as a crutch. He has to listen inward. He begins to ask himself what he truly feels, what he truly wants, how much he is willing to invest. Your calmness leaves space for his reflection, and reflection matures him. A man who is used to quick reassurance finds himself unsettled but also drawn to the depth you create. You awaken in him not only attraction, but growth. The effect is amplified by what psychologists call controlled uncertainty. When he cannot predict every reaction, when he does not know exactly how you will respond, he stays attentive, his senses sharpen. He notices the small things: your pauses, your smiles, the way your eyes soften at unexpected moments. This attentiveness is the birthplace of romance. Predictability breeds complacency, mystery breeds effort. And the beauty of the silent attitude is that it does not require effort on your part. It is simply the natural consequence of self-possession. In this way, The silent attitude is not manipulation, but liberation. It frees you from the exhausting cycles of need and defense. It frees him from the superficial comfort of easy answers. Together, it invites a deeper encounter, one in which both are present as whole beings, not as performers chasing validation. That is why the change it brings is so profound. It does not just shift his perception of you, it reshapes the entire dynamic of your relationship. You are no longer cast in the role of petitioner. You become an equal, a mystery, a presence he cannot easily file away. And as you continue to live this way, you notice the transformation is not limited to romance. The same energy that fascinates him also changes your friendships, your work, your daily interactions. People respond differently when you do not scramble to justify yourself. Opportunities open when you speak less but from clarity. Respect arrives quietly when you carry yourself as though you already respect yourself. The silent attitude, once integrated, becomes more than a way to draw him in. It becomes a way to walk through the world lighter, freer, more authentically yourself. Practicing this silent strength is less about technique and more about cultivation. It begins with noticing the moments you usually rush to fill. The urge to explain, to defend, to soften every pause. That urge is a doorway. When you recognize it, breathe. Let the pause expand. Allow silence to stand without scrambling to patch it. What feels at first like emptiness gradually reveals itself as space, and space is what gives your presence depth. In those seconds of stillness, you teach yourself that nothing needs to be proved in order for you to exist fully in the moment. Listening is one of the most transformative practices, not the kind of listening where you nod while your mind scripts the next reply, but the kind where you lean entirely into what the other person is saying. This kind of listening is magnetic because it is rare. It tells him without words, I'm here. I value your presence. I'm not rushing to steer this toward my own validation. The paradox is that by listening more, you say more. Your attention becomes the message, and in its quiet intensity, it outshines any clever line you could have rehearsed. Breath, too, is part of this language. A calm, measured inhale before you answer slows everything down. It communicates steadiness, a refusal to be swept by the turbulence of impulse. That one breath can change the energy of an entire interaction. It shows that you choose your words, that you are not reacting from fear, but responding from center. The impression it leaves is of maturity, sovereignty, and ease. There is also the practice of enjoying silence itself. Many fear it, interpreting it as rejection or awkwardness. Yet when you treat silence as natural, even nourishing, you shift its weight. A quiet moment over dinner, a pause on a walk, a stretch of stillness between sentences. These are not failures of conversation, but opportunities for closeness. In silence, tension dissolves and presence sharpens. When you can rest in that space without anxiety, you invite him to rest there too. It is in such unforced quiet that intimacy often takes root. Gestures become more powerful when they are no longer desperate. A gentle smile that rises from genuine ease, not the need to be liked, lingers in memory. A light touch on the arm, spontaneous and relaxed, speaks of warmth without demand. Even the way you carry your body, shoulders back, movements unhurried, send signals of confidence that cannot be faked. These nonverbal cues bypass the mind and enter the unconscious directly, where attraction is born. True self-care underlies all of this. The silent attitude cannot be sustained if it is only a mask. It flourishes when you value yourself deeply, apart from any relationship. This means tending to your physical health, your passions, your friendships, your growth. It means filling your life with meaning so that your energy radiates fullness rather than need. When you love yourself in practice, not just in theory, your presence changes texture. Men sense the difference instantly. They are drawn not to a woman performing wholeness, but to a woman living it. Boundaries are another expression of this calm strength. To embody silence does not mean to accept everything quietly. On the contrary, it means knowing when to walk away without drama, when to preserve your energy, when to say no without apology. Boundaries set with quiet firmness are among the most magnetic signals you can send. They say, I respect myself enough not to settle. and that respect inspires respect in return. All of this rests on authenticity. The silent attitude is not a game, not a trick to bend someone else's will. It is a way of being that grows from honesty with yourself. It asks you to inhabit your truth so fully that you no longer scramble to convince anyone of it. You do not have to posture or withdraw to protect yourself. You simply radiate the calm knowledge that you are already enough. And when that energy fills a room, words become almost unnecessary. He feels it in his chest, in the shift of his attention, in the way he keeps turning back toward you long after you've left. The change is subtle, but profound. No longer are you chasing attention or anxiously rehearsing conversations in your head. You begin to enjoy your own company, to speak when you have something to say, and to let silence carry the rest. And in that shift, something almost paradoxical occurs. The less you strain to be noticed, the more unforgettable you become. For what he cannot define, he cannot dismiss. And what he cannot dismiss, he continues to see. When you live in this quiet steadiness long enough, you begin to notice how deeply it reshapes the dynamic between you and him. His curiosity grows not because you are withholding, but because your energy invites him to wonder. He thinks of you when the room is noisy and when it is still. He replays your gaze, your pauses, your unhurried tone, trying to read a script that is written not in words but in presence. What he cannot name keeps him leaning forward. He feels he has discovered not just a woman, but a mystery woven into daily life, a mystery that does not shout, yet never fades. Attraction in this form is not a fleeting spark. It is respect entwined with desire. He does not approach you as a puzzle to be solved and discarded once complete. He approaches you as someone whose depth calls him to rise higher, to match the dignity you carry. He invests more, not out of obligation, but because your silence challenges him to bring more of himself forward. In that space, intimacy matures. It is no longer built on quick reassurance or empty repetition, but on the kind of closeness that survives pauses, withstands uncertainty, and thrives on discovery. What shifts inside him also shifts inside you when you stop chasing validation. Your energy frees itself for better things. You hear your own voice more clearly. You savor your own company. You begin to realize that the silent attitude is not only about making a man think of you, it is about reclaiming yourself from the need to be constantly affirmed. You live from your own rhythm, and in doing so, you become luminous. He feels it, others feel it, and most importantly, you feel it. The confidence that once felt like a fragile mask becomes a natural state, a quiet radiance no one can take away. This is the paradox. The more you let go of the need to hold him with words, the more he holds you in his thoughts. The less you explain yourself, the more he seeks to understand. The less you demand attention, the more he offers it freely. Not because you manipulated him, but because you created the conditions for respect and desire to grow together. In that soil, love does not wilt under pressure, it deepens. And perhaps the greatest gift of all is that this practice expands beyond romance. The same energy that makes you magnetic to him enriches every corner of your life. Friends experience you as more grounded. Colleagues sense your quiet authority. Strangers respond to your presence with unexpected warmth. The silent attitude becomes a way of inhabiting the world, not loud, not desperate, but sure, radiant, whole. You begin to understand that true attraction is never about strategy. It is about alignment, your inner calm aligning with the world around you, drawing to you what resonates with that strength. So the next time you feel the urge to rush, to prove, to fill every pause, remember this: your silence is not empty, it is full. It carries the weight of your self-respect, the glow of your authenticity, the calm that no storm can shake. And when you inhabit that silence, you do not just make him think of you, you make him respect you, long for you, and most of all, see you as someone unforgettable. If this reflection has touched you, I invite you to share your own experiences in the comments below. Have you ever noticed the power of silence in your relationships? Did it change the way he saw you or the way you saw yourself? Your story may help another woman discover the strength she has been carrying all along. And if you found value here, don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who needs the reminder, and subscribe for more insights that speak not only to love, but to the deeper art of living fully and authentically.